And so part of what I've always tried to do is use my fashion to make a doorway for my faith.
Huh? The more you listen to Mike Todd, the more you come away with the conclusion that he's probably in above his head, even though, by all accounts, out on the outside looking in, he seems to have a successful ministry. Now, it depends on how you measure success in terms of it being a large ministry, growing, popularity, and so forth. Yeah, that way it's successful. And if that's what he's looking for, well, then fine. Congratulations, he's made it. But in terms of actually being biblically centered and making good gospel, Bible sense, no. Now, when he makes this statement, he's on this little podcast. I'm not sure what it's called, but he's talking about fashion. And what he says about fashion in relation to how he wants to present the gospel and so forth, one, it's kind of eye-opening. It kind of explains some things, or should I say, confirms some things in terms of him being just a little bit too worldly and appealing to the things of the world for the sake, if we're to take him at his word, for the sake of the gospel. I think it's just really just using the gospel. But you tell me what you think.
And so part of what I've always tried to do is use my fashion to make a doorway for my faith.
Yep.
And a lot of times people don't understand it, but fashion actually, somebody come up to you, it's the easiest conversation starter. Like, bro, those jeans are fire.
Literally
It's
already
like,
today.
it's like, yo, where you get that jacket? Is it come da 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 da? And that doorway, because Christ has to be introduced through conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't conversate with people. So I try to do things that can start a conversation. And even if I'm looking whack, I'll go up to somebody and be like, bro, your shoes. And I was like, oh, these are things.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? But what does that do? That starts a conversation. And who knows where that leads to for the end of it, no matter if it's in that conversation or 10 conversations later, I want it to lead to Christ at some point.
Does this kind of, I don't know, speak to a little bit of him being a little worldly, trying to be like the world? Because we're talking about fashion. We're not talking about some old fashion. I'm pretty sure he's not dressing, matter of fact, he dressed in pretty expensive clothing. That part has been documented by other folks, not by me, because I couldn't tell you what expensive clothing looks like. I know I don't have any. Most of my stuff is cheap, which is fine. I have no fashion sense, and so a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense to me, although there was a time where maybe I did have a little bit of fashion sense, at least as it pertains to suits and so forth. But never did I ever think that fashion would be kind of the doorway to get in. I understand having a conversation starter. I get that. But the truth is, you can have anything to be a conversational starter. As a matter of fact, if your mind is on him and focus on the gospel and more importantly, focus on your light shining, we'll get back to that in a second, then you'll take anything and turn it into that. Just like someone who is focused on football, anything that comes up, they'll make it point to their favorite team or what's happening, or if it's politics or what's happening socially, they'll do so. So I want to play this again, and let's just listen to what he says and see why I think this isn't troubling anymore. We're past the point of being troubled and disappointed by him. But again, let's go ahead and listen.
And so part of what I've always tried to do is use my fashion to make a doorway for my faith.
Yep.
Now, a couple of things. One, as a pastor, you want to make sure, one, that you give no reason, and even as Paul says, for you, being a younger pastor, give no reason because of your youth to have someone look down on you. As Paul tells Timothy, let no one look down on you because of your youth. Now, he's speaking to a person who's an elder, who's planning churches and whatnot. By the way, Timothy is older than he is. Timothy, at the time that Paul is making this statement, is older than Mike Todd is at this point in time. But you want people to look at you with some respect if you are the man of God, if you are the pastor. But you don't want people to speak evil of your good, and so you don't want to give an opportunity for that to be said. So you know what you want to do? You want to kind of dress the part. You want to make sure that what you're doing is not to glorify you, to point to you. As 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. And he compares that to, or he contrasts it with eating and drinking, something that seems trivial, but even doing that, do it all to the glory of God. I would use it this way, the way that I used to explain to people who worked in the industry that I used to be in as an investment advisor. I would train financial service reps, and I would tell them about how they should dress and how they should not dress, some things to think of. Wearing bright colored clothes or ultra fancy jewelry and clothes can take away from, because it might give someone a bad perception about you. For example, if you wore some canary yellow suit and some really bright clothes and some gaudy jewelry, and then you want to talk to someone about investing, but they think that maybe all of their commissions or fees are going to pay for your little gaudy lifestyle, it sends the wrong message. Similarly, with a doctor comes out and he's talking about some sort of surgery for you and he's not dressed apart. Sometimes you want to look a certain way, not giving people a reason to think ill of you. And clothes is not the way that we point people to the gospel. If that were the case, John the Baptist needs to be told a thing or two.
Yep.
And a lot of times people don't understand it, but fashion actually, somebody come up to you, it's the easiest conversation starter. Like, bro, those jeans are fire.
Literally
It's
already
like,
today.
it's like,
Why is fashion the easiest conversation starter? What it is it's just something that you like. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with you liking fashion. I don't have a problem with you even liking to look good. I don't have a problem with you wanting to wear certain jeans or this and that or what have you. But if that's what you want to do to stand out, that's the wrong thing.
yo, where you get that jacket? Is it come da da
Yeah.
da da da? And that doorway, because Christ has to be introduced through conversation.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't conversate with people.
Now, I won't even deal with my pet peeve about the word conversate, which is not a word. But how does Christ want us to show him? Is it through conversation? Obviously, we want to speak him, but is that what he says? We'll get to that in a second.
So I try to do things that can start a conversation. And even if I'm looking whack, I'll go up to somebody and be like, bro, your shoes. And I was like, oh, these are things.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? But what does that do? That starts a conversation. And who knows where that leads to for the end of it, no matter if it's in that conversation or 10 conversations later, I want it to lead to Christ at some point.
Well, if you don't know where, if you say you want to lead to Christ, you can ensure that it leads to Christ by starting off with Christ. But what does Jesus himself say that people ought to see? Not our clothes. No, they shouldn't see our fashion. Again, I don't have a problem with you dressing a certain way. But what should lead someone to Christ is what Jesus says. Let man see your light so shine that people will see your good works and then do what? They will then in turn glorify God. And they would maybe want to know what it is about you. And so your mouth comes into play and you share the gospel with them, or you just intentionally go out and do it and just share the gospel. People at work, people at school, people in your family, people that you pass by, whatever, you neighbors. People can tell what you live, how you live, and then you open your mouth and you tell them. That's what you want to do. But this comes across as you wanting to be more of the world. I understand Paul says that he becomes all things to win all. Well, I don't know that he necessarily meant that. I don't know. Again, I'm not against that. I'm not. I promise you, I really am not against someone dressing nice and so forth. Just because I don't dress nice, I wouldn't know how to dress nice if someone paid me to dress nice. I would go and find the cheapest clothing that you could find, and that'd be good enough. Does it fit? Does it cover me? I'm good. That's me. But again, I understand he's a lot younger than I am, and so his fashion sense is going to be better, more detailed, and so forth. But if the focus, though, is going to be on him, well, then we've got to leave the fashion alone. Again, what did Jesus say about John? What did you see? Did you see someone coming, as he says, in soft clothing, fine clothing? And in this case, soft is the word malakois, which soft, kind of effeminate clothing. And let's be honest, some of these pastors today tend to dress that way. No, but you saw how John came. John came in camel's hair and so forth. John did not come looking the fashion sense part, did he? And so it's a bad message. But then again, this kind of goes in, or this is in keeping with how he has done everything else.